Hey everybody, this is Ed from the Whiskey Tangent Podcast, back with another Whiskey Short, and a special one today, I have to tell you. And joining me, as always, is Scott.
Hey everybody.
And a couple of our oldest and closest friends, and, of course, jacket members of the podcast, Gabe the Whiskey Sherpa.
Hello, friends.
And Jeff, the Knight Who Says Neat.
Hello.
Also, relevant for this episode, a Star Trek expert.
That's right.
Oh, yes.
I mean, that's not deniable. He's one of the top 12 in the country, according to us.
Right. We have no evidence to the contrary, so who's number one?
Right, and neither do you. So
That's right.
He could be number one.
He could be. But what we have today is a number two. The Star Trek Spirits Captain's Table Batch number 2, Quick Taste.
Bonus short.
All right, so I have a description. It's only 3 paragraphs.
Well, first of all,
Yeah.
really excited. I think we should talk about this.
Okay. I'm so excited. I just want to get into it.
Right. We have a really nice relationship with the guys over at Star Trek Spirits. Mm-hmm. And we talked about exploring this spirit with them when it came out. And then one day, without a lot of fanfare, it came in the mail.
Yeah. What I thought was going to happen was they were going to send us samples like they did of the batch 1 that we did.
Right.
That was in the winter 2023 last call. And what they actually sent was the full thing. And it's not just a bottle. It's a whole presentation package.
Right, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, which we will talk about. So, the description from their press release. Within the Star Trek universe's wider legendarium, the Captain's Table is an interdimensional tavern accessible solely to ship's captains. Existing beyond normal spacetime, it serves as a crossroads that spans eras and realities, a mysterious sanctuary where captains share stories of adventures and trials, often finding reprieve, camaraderie, and sometimes answers to their most profound questions. With batch number 2 of the Captain's Table's line of whiskeys, Star Trek Spirits has created a distinguished 7-year straight bourbon from distillery master Crispin Kane that's presented in what they call the octagon. Mm-hmm. The epitome of masterful design and craftsmanship, the octagon isn't just a container, it's a stage for your Captain's Table bottle, where form meets function and elegance meets the extraordinary. Springing to life within a built-in light-up base, it instantly becomes the centerpiece of any room or bar. And if that's not enough for you, every bottle of the Captain's Table, starting with batch number 2 and continuing to future releases, comes with a special bottle topper containing a unique coin called the medallion.
You found that.
Yeah, it's on the top of the bottle, attached with a magnet, which is removable in the same way that the saucer section of the Enterprise D was detachable. The medallion grants its owner exclusive benefits such as private tastings and virtual distillery events, and since there are only 200 bottles of batch number 2, it truly raises the bar for the exclusivity of Star Trek Spirits.
Sweet.
As the stats of this, it is a straight bourbon. As I said, the proof is 127.
Wow. The
mash bill is not disclosed. The age is 7 years. The distiller Crispin Kane of Tamar Distillery, Mendocino Spirits in Ukiah, California, and we'll be talking with him later. The price, $347.
Wow.
For this whiskey and its packaging.
Describe the bottle. It's
Oh.
fantastic.
Yeah, so the bottle is a very nice... Jeff, how would you describe it? It's like a...
It's like a photon torpedo.
Yes, that's a very good analysis. It's a very portly round bottle with
The Delta.
the Star Trek
Yeah.
Delta
That's what
is
they call
stuck
the
to
insignia on their shirts.
uniform, right?
Yeah.
It's actually stuck to the outside of the bottle.
Yeah, it's a piece of metal glued to the glass.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an upside down teardrop shape because it's wider at the top, but it's very tapered.
They've put a lot of energy and time into the bottle. It's a beautiful bottle.
Right. And of course, it's got the metal top and the medallion inside of it.
Right.
And then the octagon itself, it's this tall, you could fit one bottle in it. It's black. It has the Star Trek Delta on it as well. But then, and it opens up in the front with 2 little hinged doors. And then when you open both doors, the lights come on and it illuminates the bottle from the bottom. And it sends all the light in it, just like, you know, the new Star Trek movies that were done by the ones with Chris Pine. They have a lot of lens flare. It's kind of what the effect you get when you open that.
Yeah, the bottle itself is amazing. I mean,
Right.
it's probably a $40 bottle, to be honest.
Right. Even outside of the octagon packaging, the bottle itself is awesome. We will post what the packaging looks like and even a video of like opening it and the lights coming on and everything. It's tremendous.
I think that equates to 70 bars of gold platinum.
Oh, go Latinum. The exchange rates are pretty bad.
I want to add a couple of things here. First of all, our first experience with them was tasting their Romulan Ale Rye, which they also were kind enough to send to us.
Full bottle of that.
And it was amazing. And even back then, I said, you know, it was 100 proof and it wasn't a gimmick whiskey, which we weren't sure of. That was our first experience with it, but it was crafted and delicious, and we're like really impressed. I will say that with the exclusivity of this particular expression, the proofing, and what was it again, 127?
Yeah.
I mean, they could have pared this down to 100 and squeezed out a few more bottles if that was their goal. it shows me that they're really mostly concerned with creating a very special product.
Right.
It's not just about how many bottles they can make. And so I think that's something we should recognize before we even smell it or taste it. That's something I've noticed right away.
Yeah, I mean, it's priced to, they know that there's at least 200 people who are going to pay $347 for this with the octagon packaging.
Right. Yeah.
If you think about it, there's a captive audience that love the show, and I'm assuming they're bringing a product that these fans can cherish and take ownership of. And I'm really excited to taste this because I love the show, and I love having things on my shelf that are beautiful, like this octagon container, and it lights up, and my wife would hate it, I'm sure. But which makes it even better for me.
I mean, for sure, you are the target audience.
Yeah, I am.
And I mean, you went out and ordered a Ryman Ale Rye when we had it back in the day, too.
I did. I was drinking it yesterday.
All right, well, let's smell it and taste it. Oh,
It's a really nice nose.
fruity and vanilla. So
Vanilla and caramel.
it's very vanilla caramel smelling.
And
Yeah,
I'm
sweet.
getting a little citrus, maybe some orange.
Ooh, I sniffed too hard.
Yeah.
I got too much alcohol there. Sorry.
Deep in my nose, I'm getting butterscotch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Butterscotch,
which is kind of all the things: vanilla, caramel, butterscotch.
All in
It's-
that family.
It's kind of like manifesting itself right there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of orange zest on this.
Yeah, that's kind of what I got.
Yeah.
Some marmalade, sweetness, citrusy.
There's a bit of oak and pepper to go with the sweetness.
On the nose, there's something else there, sweetness-wise. It's like an old-timey candy store smell or something. I can't put my finger on.
Interesting.
Are we tasting?
Yeah. Oh,
Wow. At first it's hot.
yeah.
And then it's sweet.
Oh, it finishes so smooth.
It's so potent. But yeah, it comes in hot. It has a crescendo, and then it tapers off nice and slowly.
Yeah.
Man, the butterscotch is so present on the palate.
God, I love it.
Yeah, there's way more spice and pepper on the very initial tip of it that you don't get so much on the nose.
Yeah, I wasn't ready.
Baking
Yep.
spices.
Yep.
There's so many.
Yes.
So good.
Clove. The cinnamon's there, but it's actually not the strongest one like it normally is. I think there's more of a nutmeg and a clove before you get to that.
I'm getting like a grape now, like a red grape, maybe like a wine. I don't know if this is finished in wine or not.
Like a Merlot.
Kinda.
I put a little bit of water in there. It's good, but it comes off extremely hot, and you need a good couple of seconds to let the mellowness come through.
I think it's interesting you're saying it's hot. At 127, of course it's hot, but I was drinking 100 proof whiskey pre-gaming that I thought gave me a bigger chest burn than this one.
It's not hot in my chest. It's
Yeah.
hot on the tongue
Yeah.
as you initially sip it. And then it goes into the sweetness and it fades away.
Right.
Now, Scott, you put water in it.
I did put water in it.
That make a difference?
I haven't tasted it.
Well, no, I don't want it to make it. I want it to be perfect just as it is right now.
Oh,
I think it tempered it just a slight bit. I taste a lot of hot butterscotch right now in a good way.
I put water in, Jeff, and I feel like it did let some more sweetness out,
Oh, my
but
God, yes.
but I don't think it helped it from being as great as it was when I first sipped it. I think it doesn't need the water, but the water, of course, changes it like water will.
paradoxically, it dries my tongue out that I put the water in it. It doesn't make any sense to be doing that, but
Thank you, Mr. Spock.
yeah.
Most illogical reaction.
Now, this is really good. I've never had a bourbon that had such a strong butterscotch. It's not even a flavor. It's just a
Yeah.
taste.
It's like an alcoholic Werther's.
Yeah. Yes.
It's really distinctive.
There's so many layers to the flavor. I think we need to just kind of start again on the palate because I feel like I kind of got all over the place with it.
Is there any information on how it was finished? Like, is it what kind of barrels?
No, I don't.
Did you
and
give the stats? Give the stats again.
I did, but I don't have mash bill, and it's aged 7 years. But we will be talking with the master distiller, and we'll try
Right.
to find out for you.
Yeah, so we'll definitely have that in here.
Yeah.
Well, going back with the nosing again, in between sips, I just picked up some savory candied bacon.
Jesus, I was going to say that because there's a saltiness to it at
Right.
the end.
Yes.
A bit of a brine on the nose.
That's why I said I need to revisit it. I completely agree with you.
It keeps coming back with something different.
Yeah, I definitely smell and taste the saltiness.
Jeff, what planet would you age this on if you were in the original series? To get the best climate.
It would have to be Cessus 3, where the Gorn reptilian person
Wow.
met Captain Kirk, and they had a duel to the death.
Oh, yeah, it was a very dry planet. It was almost like a New Mexico or Arizona type of topography. I like that. Build the rick house right there. And that's, yeah, good call.
One more question, Jeff. You being the Star Trek fan, wasn't one of the movies based on a birth of a new planet where they were watching it basically evolve and grow? Was it Genesis?
The planet Genesis?
You
Yeah.
think that would affect the aging process?
Well,
Yeah.
Actually, yes, it would, because the Genesis effect causes things to age much quicker than they should.
There you go.
Because they use proto matter in the Matrix. Thank you.
Like a Texas summer.
I mean, you think how much they could charge for a bottle with 2 months aging, and it started like 35 years later.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, I am what I am. You guys love me.
We
but
brought you here for that reason.
I think that's a valid question, though.
only so often will I let it out. And I usually hide it from the rest of the civilized world. But it's all in my head, and sometimes it slips out.
He was bullied as a child.
Yeah. So
I was not bullied as
By
a child.
me.
It wasn't that planet being run by Kirk's son?
Yes.
right.
Well, the experiment,
The
right.
very limited knowledge I have of Star Trek
Yes.
movies.
Well, that was actually
Yes.
pretty deep knowledge,
It was
Gibbs.
Kirk's son, David, who used proto matter in Matrix as a
Accelerate.
shortcut.
Oh, a shortcut.
to accelerate the birth of the planet.
Yes,
Yeah.
to prove his science fact somehow.
So maybe they used the Genesis device on this whiskey.
It's possible. We have no proof that they did not.
But wouldn't the barrels age as well and maybe not be so resourceful as aging?
We have to get special barrels.
This is something we need to
So,
look at.
Jeff, where would you get your barrels from if you were in the original series?
Separate from the aging.
We need a heavily forested planet.
Would this be Vulcan oak?
The Andorian birch.
There we go. I like that. All right. So,
All right, so let's do the tasting notes.
Right.
All right, so these are their tasting notes. On the nose, butterscotch, caramel, toffee,
sure.
and a hint of sweet confections, which is nice. On the palate, more butterscotch, more caramel, buttery sweet cream, raisins, and soft citrus.
Yeah, we got orange zest. Yeah, we're right there. We're doing a great job.
Yeah, on the finish, remarkably smooth with malt, vanilla, toasted grains, and butter,
Okay.
which is interesting. Salted butter.
Oh, man, we can stretch it.
Perhaps whipped butter in a tub?
Oh,
right.
nice. Yeah.
Was that all the tasting notes, or is there more?
No, that's it.
Really? No savory, saliny,
Well,
bacony,
I've noticed before
sweets?
that they're a little reserved on their tasting notes. I think they want us to come up with, we tasted it. There's no way you can deny the butterscotch and the vanilla, the orange zest.
Do you think maybe having a saliny, bacony undertone is a good tasting note to advertise?
Listen, I think they'll appreciate that we all got that because that's why they
Distinctive.
send it to us, because we have pretty good palates, a lot of experience. Like I said, Scott and I have drank over 300 whiskeys just on the podcast. You guys have been along for a lot of it, and Lord knows you guys are both well over 100, 150 whiskeys in your private life, for sure.
My own personal list, I'm approaching 200 myself.
There you go. So that's one of the reasons I think that they were so generous to give this to us, to ask us to review it, is because they want to see what we come up with.
I'm getting a candied Regulin bloodworm. So if you know, you know.
I thought he was saying regular wrong. I'm like, no, it's regular. And he's no, Regulin bloodworm.
Yeah.
How's that for a tasting note?
Exactly.
So I think what we'll do now is we'll pause here and splice the conversation that we have in the future with Craig, Howard, and Crispin, and then we'll come back and give our final thoughts.
Hey, Craig, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
You guys haven't met Crispin yet.
No.
No, it's our first time.
Oh, it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
He's a great distiller, and it's got a unique way of distilling that's different than those in Kentucky, where they're more beer focused in the distilling process. He's more wine focused.
Interesting.
Speak of the devil, there he is playing bongos for Santana.
That's right.
That's an awesome picture.
Get unmuted. There I am. Yeah.
Hey, Crispin.
Hi.
I'm
Listen,
Scott.
good to meet you. I'm Matt. I've heard so much about you, of course.
This is
Nice to meet
Craig.
you
You might have
guys.
met him.
Yes, we met. We know.
He's vaguely familiar.
Well, I'm glad we're able to land on a date for this call.
No, it's really perfect for us, actually.
I know you're a March man. This went well.
Yeah, that's all over.
By
Yeah.
law, we have to call it the Whiskey Bandits.
Whiskey.
That's right. Yeah. I have to beep out March or we'll get a letter.
Howard, good to see you again.
Good to see everybody. How's everybody doing?
Hey, all right.
Look, we're wearing got my shirt on. Look, we're matching. I love
Look
it.
at you guys.
Yes.
Holy cow. It's a first.
You guys got your Star Trek t-shirts. Ed, should we wear our jackets?
Go get them.
A few moments later.
Whiskey cans and jackets.
You guys look
Well, I
great. Look at that.
Love it. Yeah, we did an outline of just potential talking points that we would like to hit.
Like I said, Scott will put this together where if we have to say something at the end that you want to put in, he'll put it back where it belongs.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's just start off. Each of you just say who you are, what you do, and a one-paragraph synopsis of your entire life.
Would you like me to start there?
Go ahead.
Hit it.
Sure. Well, hi, I'm Howard Jackowitz. I'm the co-founder and president of Wines That Rock and Spirits That Rock. And I started my whiskey journey. I really blame Crispin for this whole thing on August 11th. 2022, I don't think I drank whiskey because of a bad college experience. And then we started tasting whiskey across the board to find who we were going to work with. And when we did ultimately meet Crispin and taste that barrel on August 11th, it snapped. I was like, oh, this is fantastic. So that's a little background.
And I'm Craig Spurrier. I'm a partner and chief innovation officer here at Wines That Rock and Spirits That Rock. And I found Crispin in my whiskey journey about 4 years ago when I was just getting into it, left the craft beer scene and came across Crispin, a bottle that was sent to me from a friend from Ukiah, California, and I was blown away by the flavor profile and just the different attributes, and you could tell the craft was in the bottle just from the nose down to the finish. So I said, Howard, we have to go out to California, because Howard and I were traveling all up and down the East Coast trying to find a distillery that we could work with for all of our brands, specifically Star Trek, because we were just getting into spirits with them after a successful wine program. So through our journeys of tasting and meeting different distillery masters and understanding different processes and great education, and Crispin was the one that stood on top. He is our master.
Well, thank you, Craig. I am Crispin Kane. I started my career in all of this in a winery 40 years ago, and I began subsequently working at the Jermaine Robin Brandy Distillery here in Mendocino County almost 35 years ago. And I began making whiskey commercially as the founder and president of Tamar Distillery / Mendocino Spirits in 2009. And through my training with a brandy master from Cognac, I have mastery over the use of a pot still and thoroughly versed in fermentation from my experience in winemaking, and really pleased when these gentlemen proposed I bottle something for Star Trek Spirits, because I've also been a science fiction and fantasy fan since I was 3 years old and sitting in front of the TV late at night watching Star Trek with my brothers.
Which we didn't know. I just want to throw that out there. We did not know that Crispin was as into Star Trek as he was. And I think in our first meeting, I've mentioned this before, we were talking about Saurian brandy. And I think I pronounced it Syrian brandy. And Crispin was like, it's Saurian brandy. And I was like, you're our guy. I was like, and I didn't really even there didn't realize how into Star Trek Crispin was, which is just a huge bonus. But I always thought that was pretty cool.
Awesome. So you also did the batch one, right?
Yeah, Captain's Table is kind of my baby, and with these guys choosing what they like from my inventory and filling those bottles and sending it out, it's been really cool.
Yeah, I think really the intention of the program is that we are going to let Crispin reveal 10 different expressions, and I think it's a fun journey. We're going to really see what Crispin can do over 10 different releases.
Yeah, so are we, because we really enjoyed the first one, and spoiler alert, the second one topped that. We had 4 people, me, Ed, and 2 of our friends. We all tasted it, and we were all pretty blown away by it.
Yeah, and I think what's important is when we have such a great relationship like we have with you guys, and we've enjoyed your other products, there's always that terror that this is just going to be pedestrian, because we might be leaning towards you, but we have 2 guys who have drank over 150, 200 whiskeys in their lives with good palates that might be like, it's all right for me. And everybody was very much impressed with the quality of the Captain's Table too. You know?
I could tell you, like, I had a birthday a couple months ago. I had my whole family here at the house. And I was like, oh, let's go up and like really crack some bottles and drink like the best of my collection. And so we all came up here and we all tried kind of all of the stuff. I've got the Elijah Craig C923, and we drank Old Carter, and we drank all of them, and Captain's Table was right in the middle, and everybody went nuts over Captain's Table.
I really appreciate what you guys have said about batch 2. I really, really do.
So what I'd like to do, if Crispin could take us through his approach to this spirit, and then we could maybe give you an overview of our reaction and some of our tasting notes.
No problem. So the mash bill for the straight bourbon whiskey in batch 2 is 65% corn, 20% malted barley, and 15% malted rye. This was mashed and fermented using 2 enzymes and EC1118 yeast. I start with a pretty high specific gravity. This one started at 1.075.
Can you explain what gravity is, this process?
Oh, so water is a specific gravity of 1, and specific gravity goes to 4 decimal points. And when we talk about something greater than 1, we're usually talking about sugar that's dissolved in the liquid. So when we're mashing, one of our goals is to convert starches in the grain into fermentable sugar, glucose and maltose in our case. And so I'm using malted barley and malted rye, and that means that the grain was sprouted and then toasted at the malting house, because when a grain is sprouted, all the starch and stuff inside of it converts into food for the plant and ultimately even food for people. Enzymes are also created in the malting process. And using enzymes in grain fermentations, glucoamylase, for example, this allows more of the starches and glutens to be converted into fermentable sugar. The yeast can come and bite on and eat as food. And then when the yeast does that, it converts sugars into alcohol. And then you end up with alcohol dissolved into the remaining liquid. And took a bit more than 6 weeks to ferment to dryness, which is really essential, so that all the starches, glutens, and sugars are consumed and converted to alcohol and carbon dioxide. Specific gravity will also equal into, once fermentation's done, the alcohol and water solution become lighter than water. So it'll go to less than 1 from as high as what it was. And by achieving a dry fermentation where there's no sugars, no starches, no glutens left, that allows me to go into a direct fire copper pot still. And without burning the liquid when we're distilling, I do a double distillation process. And, acidity develops. It goes from being very sweet to being very sour. Those acids are very complex molecules that transform in the distillation process into something that actually ends up being clearer than rainwater, smooth, and even slightly sweet on day 1. It's really kind of an amazing thing to go from very sweet in fermentation to so sour you can't drink it, to a distilled product that carries all the wonderful flavor of the grains. And just absolutely one of those wonderful things you'll encounter in your life is the smell and the taste and appearance of a distilled spirit done well.
Awesome.
So, yeah. And then from there, we add a little bit of rainwater and it goes into barrels. And the barrels behind me right now are from Canton Cooperage in Lebanon, Kentucky. Probably their smallest customer. I'm pretty small. I made 108 barrels of whiskey last year and 2,000 gallons of gin, so it's still a pretty small operation. That does allow me to focus on quality as best I possibly can. And I'm getting some really fine wood that's been cured for 36 months outdoors, and then number 3 char. And then I waited for a long time. I have a couple of brands myself, Low Gap and Mendocino Spirits. And then to have the right people come along and say to me, will you bottle for us something really wonderful? And to work with some of the finest people in marketing and sales has been really special. Craig and Howard have been the best. I love the presentation. I love being part of Star Trek somehow. And to have, a hand in that just a little bit has been really special. Really glad you guys like batch 2. I believe it was a single barrel, and, we went through and looked at various barrels and chose something that we all liked and wanted to put into Star Trek spirits. It's got to be good or we ain't going to do it. So
you telling us the mash bill, having it have a malted rye in it actually makes a lot of sense with all the impressions that we're getting from the taste of it, because a lot of that character of rye that we were all getting, a lot of herbaceousness, and even toward the end, we got some little saltiness quality going on. And that, I think, because the malted barley and the malted rye.
Brine, some savory. Some people said almost like elements of bacon, and as far as just the salty savoriness of it, not the flavor of bacon.
Because it kind of a fatty quality to it.
If that means it was like very oily mouthfeel, and through the pepper and spice, there was this little bit of a brininess to it. Which, and here was a real thing. So I drank it, I tasted it, then I put water on it. But then when I went back to it at full strength, it was like completely different.
We all did that, and we were just blown away. This was a complete surprise. I didn't even understand the mechanism of that.
Somehow we primed our mouth with the original version, then a slightly proofed down version, then went back for the whole proof again, and all these other things are waiting for us now. It's delicious. One of the most delicious whiskeys I've ever had, and I've drank hundreds of them.
Wow.
Yeah, we ended up comparing this with a whiskey that we had the Lost Lantern people put out from the Cedar Ridge distillery, and that was 100% malted wheat. And we were surprised that this Captain's Table number 2 had some of the similar notes that a 100% malted wheat whiskey had, even though there's absolutely no wheat.
That was a high proof too. That was 123. So that was the best one we had since January. So I said, well, what's the best whiskey we had since January? Let's get that out. Let's see where is this compared to that. And it was like, right here, here.
It's right there. Yeah.
So what do you taste in your whiskey?
Gosh, the vanilla, the butterscotch is really pronounced. I really love how the oak plays with the malted grains. The herbaceousness from the malted grains and the malted rye are really special to me. And pairing that with the corn is something I really like. And I'm glad you guys like it too. I also get an element of stone fruits, a bit of peach perhaps, even plum, and then that toasted grain, a cracker quality. I think all that comes through for me in a big way.
Oh, what about you guys, Howard?
I mean, certainly the vanilla and the butterscotch are right there. I mean, like I said, I have the bulk of my collection up here. Captain's Table is absolutely at the very top. And let's just say number 2, as Crispin knows, is right up my alley. Like, it is one of my favorite bottles that I've ever had. And just to be part of it is cool. I love it.
Also, unbelievably smooth at its proof point.
Also, there's something about the mouthfeel of that I really like.
You don't cold filter this, you rack filter it. And that process also adds to the whole value of the spirit itself.
No, I'm not cold stabilizing and filtering. I will, at bottling, put it through a fine screen to catch any possible bee's knees or barrel particles that might be left. But early on in my project, I would cold stabilize and filter because I came out of making brandy where you really must do this. But the fact is that I'm still using old pot stills from cognac, and I'm still using that old distillation method from cognac. And by being careful with the fire, I do 2 distillations in 24 hours, and by going slowly, I'm not pushing too much fat over into the condenser. There is some, of course, there has to be, but you'll see distilleries that are running the fire pretty high and they're using a thump keg or whatever to catch fats, and I could never imagine running the fire that high. And it's about what we extract from the still and also about what we leave behind in the still. And then in the second distillation, it also becomes about where we make our cuts, from head to heart and heart to tail. And one of the temptations with the whiskey is to keep collecting heart after I would stop.
Crispin, is that greed, or they just don't want to waste anything, or where does that come from?
Well, maybe it's an economic decision. Maybe. On the days I'm distilling, I'm not making economic decisions. I'm making decisions about making fine whiskey. And the same with when I'm mashing and doing all the production. That said, there's this old saying that says, whiskey, you're the devil, right? So when you're distilling brandy, there is a very distinct place during the distillation that comes at this point where we cut, where it'll stop smelling floral and wonderful and start smelling like a wet dog. I'm not kidding. But at the point at which we would cut for brandy, whiskey is still smelling pretty good. But in fact, I can tell who's taken too much seconds. I can tell who's running the fire too high. And this is just my opinion. And I can tell who didn't achieve a dry fermentation. And who might have criticized? We're all working hard in this industry to do something well. And so I never criticize by name anybody else, but my choices are my choices. And this is one of the reasons why you like that batch too. The choices of ingredients, choices I made during mashing and fermentation, choices during distillation, choice of wood, all those things. It's only as good as the weakest link in the chain. And that's the bottom line.
One thing I want to say real quick, based on what you just said.
Yeah.
The one thing I can say about batch 2, it doesn't have an off note. Because normally when you drink even a good whiskey, you're overcoming some part of it you don't like. You're kind of accepting the good with the bad to get to the end of your sip. I didn't find a single off note of your batch, which I think is a lot more rare than whiskey drinkers probably take the time to notice.
Right. It wasn't too hot on the nose. It wasn't too over oaked, aged too long. You might not like the salty, fatty taste that we got in it, but we happen to love it because it was a huge surprise. But what we've learned over the 5 years of doing this podcast is that you start off with things that are pretty sweet and pretty basic, your Kentucky bourbons. And then as you go through, you want something a little different. You want something with a little extra flavor. You want something maybe that it's finished or it's got different mash grains that you've never had before. Having malted barley, malted rye, malted wheat, as we've talked about, it just brings all these extra flavors that you're not going to get in a traditional Kentucky bourbon.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. About those off notes, when I'm fermenting, I'm going into a stainless steel tank that's sterile and really clean and closed. And I'm not doing an open wooden vat. I have traditional methods, but I'm using modern innovations too. And I think it makes a difference in the end. And using a yeast, EC1118 is traditionally used in the fermentation of cognac. And the reason why they use it is because it doesn't create off flavors. It's like there's no yeast flavor left at all in the end. And it's also an aggressive yeast. It's Saccharomyces cerevisiae bayenis, and it will eliminate other microbes that might have taken hold or might try to take hold. So this just leads in the end to this nice, clean ferment that gives us a really beautiful distillate.
Awesome.
And/or Howard, to finish up here today, because I know it's running a little long, but can you talk about the plan now? You said he's going to have 10 versions total. Do you ever see yourself putting out something that's higher in volume or number?
In terms of what we're doing with Crispin, I say all the time, let's Quentin Tarantino this thing. Quentin Tarantino always talks about, I'm making 10 great movies and that's it. So I think that the goal of Captain's Table, A, is to keep it super elevated. I mean, that's why we're working with Crispin. I think a really cool moment when we left Crispin's facility, we hadn't designed the packaging yet at that point. It's like, oh man, we have to design up to this level of whiskey. So that was part of the fun too. We were like, all right, well, Crispin's going to deliver on the whiskey. We got to deliver on the packaging. But yeah, it's really meant to be something very special. And I don't think we will mass produce the Captain's Table. We have other projects that we're working on and other whiskeys, but this is our shot at what's the very best thing we can make and put into the market. Then we'll see where we go from there, for sure.
We're doing some really cool expressions, too. Like you guys love wheated bourbon. So Crispin has one coming out. I think it's either batch 6 or 7.
I think it's 5.
I think it's 5. And that'll be hitting at the end of this year, probably in October.
Oh, wait. So you're putting these out pretty quick then?
Yeah. We just released batch 3, which is a straight bourbon at 92 proof. And then batch 4 will release in August.
Batch 3 is the next release. It hasn't gone out, but it's been bottled.
So is the batch 3 going to come out in the same octagon, or are you going to have different packaging?
Yeah, all 10 will be in the same form factor with the bottle and the brushed metal, the coin, which is also a super fun element.
So do you have all 10 barreled right now?
No. I think we've got 3 and 4 are bottled, and we're working on 5.
So 200 bottles came out for batch 2. You're going to do the same volume for all the batches?
I believe batch 5 might be a double, but yeah, essentially the game plan is 10 batches to get on that mailing list.
And then obviously you do get the coin, which gets you into private events and tastings, and we're having one in August in Vegas, and Crispin's going to be holding a tasting there. So everyone who did purchase the Captain's Table is invited.
How many people per coin was our question.
Because our friends wouldn't know if they could come. We're like, no, I don't think you can, man. But,
well, I don't think you can come, Ed. I think it's just me, because I have it. It's right there.
I'll tell you guys, that coin is like Willy Wonka's golden ticket.
Exactly.
There's only so many of them, and there you are.
I love it, man. Well, we hope you liked the episode. We appreciate being included in the process. We also like to have our little foot in the Star Trek universe.
I wanted to just say one thing. We appreciate the support, and thanks, guys. I love having
Definitely.
the open communication with you guys. So
Yeah, well, we
you.
appreciate your support of us
Yeah, honestly,
because we're also really small.
Yeah, it's nice to go into your website and see a link to us talking about you on there. It feels good to be appreciated, I guess is the way I put it.
I
So-
showed my mom. I'm like, Mom, look at this. She's like, oh my God, this is so good.
Cool.
Excellent.
So thanks, everybody.
Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks so much,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, so that's it. Final thoughts, guys.
But we've all just poured a whole new portion because it's so good. We have like 30 whiskeys behind us, and this is what we're going to drink the rest of the night. So
Oh, I'm getting a little chocolate on the nose now.
Yes.
Yeah, right? Isn't that weird?
This is our second drink.
Yeah.
Some semi-sweet dark chocolate.
It smells like milk chocolate.
yeah, so it's funny. We added some water to it, and then we put it back at full strength, and it tastes even better at full strength.
Wow.
Like,
No, milk chocolate and butterscotch. Oh my god.
yeah. Oh, I'm getting fig now. What is happening?
it just so it keeps it
No, I'm
keeps.
serious. Like a fig Newton.
It's like the Genesis planet just keeps reinventing itself right in front of us, turning into
Just like
something new.
things like sporadically popping up all over the place.
It's so good.
Getting back to that savory bacon note, this reminds me of when you had Anders over with the old fashioned with the bacon washed
Yeah.
rendering.
Yeah.
Yeah, bacon washed old
It's
fashioned.
the
Yeah.
savoriness.
It's a really surprising taste for a bourbon.
I'll be honest, I'm not tasting the bacon as much as I'm in the saltiness, but
It's like a fattiness.
Yeah, but you understand the ballpark I'm in, though.
just because I don't taste it doesn't mean you're not tasting it. My palate is my palate.
Just say I'm wrong, Ed. That's what you
No.
want. That's what you want to say. Just say it.
I'm
Gabe's wrong.
let's not fight in front of the Star Trek spirit people.
I know.
Please, not in front of the Klingons.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's got to be it. And take us out.
We want to really thank the Star Trek Spirit crew for sending us this bottle.
Absolutely.
And for partnering with us and letting us be a part of their growth as a brand. The first Captain's Table was good.
Yeah.
Really good. But this.
I'm curious what the future will hold.
Yeah.
So if you're a fan of Star Trek or you're just a fan of good whiskey, keep your eyes open for what's coming from Star Trek Spirits because they're doing great things. There's more to come. And so for the Whiskey Tangent podcast, live long and prosper. I'm Ed.
I'm Scott.
I'm Jeff.
I'm Gabe.
Kapla.
Cheers, everybody.